Good evening. We're going to reconvene to open session. We're returning from closed session where the board took no action. So we will move on to item number 6, the Pledge of Allegiance, and ask Dr. Reamer in his last board meeting to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, that's unless you decide to run again later, but okay, but for now, all right. All right, item number 7 is student, staff, and community recognition, which I think is Jane. Dr.
So, I don't know how many of you know this, but this will be Patty's last board meeting. Patty has been with the district 29 years. And I don't do my job without Patty, but I'll now confess that the brains of the operation is sitting to my right. I will be very, very sad, but I have a wonderful new partner, and her name is Rosabella Costa, and she is sitting at table tonight. So ordinarily, and it will happen in a minute, we will have the oath of our new governing board members, and then we will have recognitions and these lovely certificates and thank you for the service of the outgoing members, and Joan Dentler from Senator Jerry Hill's office is here to do that. I asked a favor because Patty has 29 years of service and many years to the governing board, if it would be possible for Patty to receive the same recognitions, and the answer is yes. So, Joan, the bad news is that your fancy certificate didn't quite make it in time, but we'll get it mailed to you. But we have a sample, and so Patty, if you would please come up and let us make a fuss over you.
Thank you, Superintendent Euster, and good evening, board. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Joan Dentler. I'm a field representative in the office of State Senator Jerry Hill.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ellen Kamei. I'm the district director for Assemblymember Mark Berman.
And Assemblymember Berman and Senator Hill asked us to be here this evening to honor our outgoing board members and also to honor Patty. And on a personal note, I'd like to say that as a staff member, we do rely heavily, as much as your board does on you, we as legislative staffers rely on your support staff here at Cabrillo to help us with legislative issues, with organizational issues regarding the board and the district in general. So in most of our communication is via email or phone call, so it is a pleasure to be here in person to actually honor you and to thank you for making our jobs easier as staff members for the California State Legislature. So as Superintendent Euster mentioned, one of these legislative resolutions from the California State Legislature is on order. Unfortunately, it didn't make it, and I waited till the very last second today hoping it would arrive, and it did not. So it's on its way. So in the meantime, we just have a few nice words that we'd like to say about you. And this is presented to Patricia Serrano. Warm congratulations on your retirement after 29 years of distinguished service to the Cabrillo Unified School District. In your roles as executive assistant to the superintendent, library technician, school secretary, and bilingual instructional aide, you have made a positive impact on generations of Coastside students and their families. On behalf of the state of California's 13th Senate District and 24th Assembly District, and also 22nd Assembly District, Kevin Mullen, who will be signing the larger resolution, best wishes for a fruitful and rewarding retirement.
Okay, so the first thing I'd like to continue to move forward with is the swearing in of our new school board member. Freya, you've been sworn in many times. But congratulations to Freya McKemmett for re-election. Congratulations to Lizette Cortez for election. Unfortunately, Lizette could not join us this evening. She's had an emergency that has called her elsewhere. And then congratulations to Mary Beth Alexander, the third of our new governing board members. I have the great pleasure of our County Superintendent Nancy McGee will come up and do the ceremonial swearing in ceremony. So Mary Beth Alexander, where are you? There you are. And Nancy. Well, and we also have TV, so.
If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Mary Beth Alexander,
I, Mary Beth Alexander,
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Excellent. Congratulations.
So many, many dignitaries here this evening. We are thrilled to have, and the wonderful support. I can't say enough how much wonderful support we receive from the county. It's kind of strange. I'm speaking to you and they're right, I can feel the eyes, like right here. So not only do we have representation from the San Mateo County Office of Education, but directly behind me is Susan Alvaro, who is our representative to the county school boards. I bring this to your attention because now we would love to be recognizing our outgoing board members. And Dr. Reamer, we would like to start with you, please, and Joan, and Susan, you get a bunch of recognitions here.
Thank you, Superintendent. So Kirk, again, on behalf of State Senator Jerry Hill, Assemblymember Mark Berman, and Assemblymember Kevin Mullen, they've asked us to be here this evening to honor you for your years of service to this board, to the community. I will not read this entire legislative resolution. However, I will just read the very end of it because I think it sums up everything that they wanted to say here well. Whereas, as a dedicated and forward-looking CUSD Governing Board trustee for 12 years, Dr. Reamer made numerous consequential contributions to ensuring that the district have the financial means to provide the students with safe school sites, hosting facilities that encourage learning and provide up-to-date technology, while also retaining small classes and good teachers, and aiming for all students to achieve their highest potential. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Assembly members Kevin Mullen and Mark Berman and Senator Jerry Hill that they take great pleasure in commending Dr. R. Kirk Reamer for his exemplary service as a trustee to the governing board of the Cabrillo Unified School District and extend to him their sincere best wishes for continued success in all of his future endeavors.
You might want to rest that down there. So hi, I'm gonna detour for 1
second and say, Freya, congratulations. I'm really glad you're still here. Rob, thank you for all the service that you rendered. And Mary Beth, welcome. We don't know each other, but we will. And Patty, you have been amazing for a very long time. I've been able to work with you, and you will be missed. But thank you for everything you've done. So, I'm Susan Alvaro. I'm the coach-side representative to the County Board of Education and have been for 24 years. And I just got sworn in last night by Superintendent McGee, so you got me around for 4 more. For half the time I have been at the county, this young man has been raising Cain here in the district. So I just wanted to thank you for your 12 years of service. And there's a bunch of whereases here. This is on behalf of the superintendent and the Board of Education. We want to thank you for ensuring the voices of diverse students being heard, advocating for students with special needs. There's a whole lot of stuff here that I won't go into. I know that a big deal is all your advocacy for the parcel taxes and making sure that the funding was in place to get things done that needed to be done in this district. And for that, I just want to thank you and say that we are whereasing at you and we're resolving to honor you for your service to the Cabrillo Unified School District Board of Trustees. Kirk, thank you so much. It's been 12 years, yeah, buddy.
Thank you all so much.
Mr. Papalardo. Oh, wait, one more thing, I forgot.
Oh my gosh. What's that? Thank you. Thanks very much, all of you. We appreciate it.
Mr. Papalardo.
Any night I can come over the hill is always a good one, and to thank you everyone for your service is always great as well. So similar to Joan, I'm just going to read a portion of your resolution, which says, whereas the contributions that Rob Papalardo made to the students in the local community have been invaluable, and he has made a lasting impression on those individuals with whom he has been associated with. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Assembly Members Mark Berman and Kevin Mullen and Senator Jerry Hill that they take great pleasure in honoring Rob Papalardo for his outstanding record of service to the Cabrillo Unified School District and to the enhancement of public education in the state of California, and extend to him the sincere appreciation and gratitude of the public. Thank you very much.
Okay, beautiful. I think we're now going to take a short recess for reception.
Yeah, so we originally were going to have cake, but we've had a few things happen in the district unexpectedly, and we weren't able to get out, but please, let's take a 10-minute break and enjoy and celebrate our wonderful board and people who take a great deal of their personal time and effort to ensure that the students here have just the very, very best. So thank you very much. Calling our meeting back to order. Thank you, everybody. All right, thank you, everybody, for a lovely reception honoring our wonderful outgoing board members and Patty. As Jane referred to, are the many ways the brain of our whole organization here, and so much we're going to miss about you, Patty. So thank you. Okay, so first order of business, now returning back from our reception, is
Item number 9, adoption of the agenda as presented or amended. With a movement to do so. Okay. Everyone in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. Approved 4-0, and we don't have our student here today, so 4-0. Okay. All right, so that brings us to item number 10, the governing board reorganization. So this is the item with, we convene with every year in December to reorganize our team with regards to the officerships, to hold the elections to determine the governing board officers and designate governing board representatives and appointees for 2019. So the officer positions being president, vice president, clerk, secretary, and authorized signatories, and the rest as representatives. So I want to just bring up a discussion point since we don't have Lizette here tonight, and there's the opportunity for us to have a fuller retreat in the future where we can get to know each other and a little bit more, especially our new board members that will be joining us, and think about the best way to organize beyond the officer roles and the legally required roles, and beyond that, including the signatories. I would suggest we consider deferring on the items, not items 1 through 5, but 6 and beyond, to when we have a more holistic conversation with all the new board members present. I think that would just be logical to do.
Are we amending the agenda?
So is that considered part of the agenda?
Yes.
Okay,
So we will amend the agenda.
so
Can
that,
I have
so
a motion?
I could make a motion. Does somebody else want to make a motion to amend the agenda to hold elections just for items 1 through 5 tonight and to defer on 6 through,
We can do 6.
12.
Board spokesperson is always the president.
I'm fine with that. I mean,
I think we should
that one's
keep- I should
pretty
keep that.
straightforward.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think we should keep that one up, so.
okay, that's fine.
So a motion to amend the agenda to do 10A, 1 through 6, and to defer 7 through 15.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so approved 4-0 in favor of, I guess going back to item 9, approving the agenda as amended.
Went
Right.
back and did that. So
Okay.
now you can go ahead.
And now go ahead with number 10.
Right, what you said.
Okay, yes. So we'll start then with, so we'll do items 1 through 6 today. So we'll start with number 1 for the president role. And do we have a nomination?
I would like to nominate Sophia Lane for board president. I just want to make a comment for the public in that we have passed a resolution that determines the order with which we take our positions. So clerk to vice president to board president, although board members can choose not to do the board president position if they don't want to. And this was done on purpose so that every year we have a new board president. So it reminds us that we are a governing board of 5, that not one person is any more powerful than the other. We used to do this by practice, and then we wanted to make it into an actual resolution. And so that resolution is also, I think, in our.
I think it's a bylaw.
One of bylaws, it's one of our bylaws. Anyways, so that's in our packet. But I wanted to explain that for the audience so that they understand.
Thank
So,
you.
And I would like to nominate Sophia.
Thanks for the addition, Freya. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, passed 4-0. Okay, so similarly, we'll move to number 2, vice president. Do we have a nomination for vice president? Which would, per the alternating, well, I guess we'll just wait to see the nomination.
So I'd like to nominate Kimberly Hines for vice president.
Here we go. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, approved 4-0.
Can we nominate Lizette then today, even though she's not here?
I think so, yep.
And so we'll,
I won't.
okay. And so I'd like to nominate Lizette Cortez for clerk to the governing board.
Good. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, passes 4-0. Secretary to the governing board, and again, I don't know if it's traditionally or by law or by bylaw, probably all 3 of those. That is the superintendent of our school district as a secretary to the governing board. So do we have a nomination for the secretary?
So, how do you There's a motion to approve that appointment.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So I can say something like, I hereby appoint Jane Euster, our superintendent, to also serve as secretary of the governing board, CUSD, and ask for a motion?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve that appointment?
So moved.
Thank you, Kimberly. Do we have a second? Thanks, Mary Beth. Vote, please say aye if you're in favor. Aye. Okay, 4-0. Okay. And authorizing signatories, Patty, I assume that's also just a normal nomination, or is that like the secretary appointment?
It's a motion,
Okay.
to approve signatories as read. Do you have that language?
I do not have those specific
Okay.
language.
The president requests a motion to approve the authorized signatories for the governing board. President Sophia Lane, Vice President Kimberly Hines, Clerk to the governing board Lisette Lopez, and Secretary to the governing board Superintendent Jane Euster for the 2019 school year.
So do we have a motion for those signatories as described by Patty? So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Kimberly was the second. Okay, passes 4-0. Okay, and finally for tonight, the board spokesperson traditionally has also been the president. And we will do this by regular nomination. So do we have a motion or a nomination for this role?
I nominate Sophia Lane for the board spokesperson.
Okay, second? Okay, second, Mary Beth. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, passes 4-0. And now, we're done. More name tags. Okay, cool. All right, this is gonna take us a second. Okay, this is Vice President, this is you. Thank you. Thanks. All right. That's remarkably, I hope I can get this thing in here. Okay, good, thank you. All right. All right, so that brings us to item number 10, excuse me, 10B on our agenda, approve and adopt the 2019 governing board meeting calendar as required by board bylaws 9100. So in our packet was the listing of proposed dates. Do we have a motion to approve, or I want to know we have some comments.
You get a second, then you open for discussion.
Then open for discussion. Okay. Is that right?
Make
Okay.
changes?
That's what I was trying to remember. Okay. So the discussion's after the second motion. We're good. Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the calendar as proposed? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And time for discussion. Do we have any comments from members?
I prefer to not have it on Valentine's Day, so I would change it from Thursday, February 14th, maybe to Wednesday, February 13th.
Okay.
That works for me. Other than that, I have no issues.
I have two firm conflicts on Thursday, May 9th and Thursday, November 14th.
Are they conflicts for the whole week?
For the whole week. Yeah, in that case, it's the whole week.
May 9th, one, you're not going to-
So May 9th is flexible?
Are you okay?
Okay.
Okay, so that's, I'm checking with them, there are certain of these
Okay.
dates, because we have intros due, so
Could
she
it be
says we're
after
good.
May 9th?
One more. LCAP.
So that would be the 16th.
The May 16th?
So if you go 1 week later, that is May, what,
16th?
16th? Yeah, I don't have a calendar. So it's May 9th. Okay. So 16th is the proposal. And the proposal on the February is to move it to Feb 13. Yeah, the day before, the Wednesday, so that'll be on Thursday.
Let me just double check. May 16th. You said what?
I have a conflict November 14th,
So November is always a little trickier, so let's look at that.
maybe earlier. It is, again, it's the 10th through the 15th, so.
So that
And
one
if
is,
it's, I understand if it's not
When's that, Thanksgiving?
If you did
Is
earlier.
The 28th. Well, the Thanksgiving's at 28th, so we could do the 21st, or we could do the 7th. That's what I was thinking. For you guys, does it matter, like right before Thanksgiving, or better to have a couple weeks? December would be, when's the December date? Because December's probably early, 12th.
We cannot change that one.
No, I'm saying like, if, how close is it, how close is it to the 12th? Probably, I guess either are fine.
We have the October
One of the
10th,
7th?
maybe the 7th.
The 7th, so we have like more time between those two meetings? Yeah, November 7th, okay. So with the, okay. All right, so we have the three proposed changes. February will be February 13th, May will be May 16th, and November will be November 7th. Those are the new dates. Okay. Oh, any other? All right, so, do we need to move to, approve it as amended? Okay, so we need, do we have a motion to approve the calendar as amended?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, approved 4-0. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so item 10C, complete annual review of Board Bylaw 9250 as it pertains to compensation. Individuals may elect to receive for service as members for the governing board for 2019. Pass to Jane.
So normally I don't, but I think this is one of the really high-class things that this governing board does. Under the board bylaw, a governing board can technically receive compensation for attending board meetings. They also can, some are even offered health benefits. There's a number of things that go on. And this board, through its bylaws, has truly shown that it is here for the service of the community, and it declines any form of compensation, and in fact asks us to please donate the money that back to the district to be put forth in our educational programs. I really want to compliment the board on, they don't have to, the amount of work that this governing board puts in just to get through the agendas and all of the things that they do, and the support and the political work they do for us. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing that they volunteer to do this. So just wanted to say that.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the annual review as described by Jane?
Motion to not accept compensation or health insurance for services as allowed by governing board bylaw 9550, motion made by.
Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye, thank you. Can we second? Okay, passes 4-0. All right. Okay, brings us to item number 11 on the agenda, comments from the public related to items not on this agenda. So it's just a reminder, this is the opportunity for folks from the public to come and make comments to the board all together, the governing team. And by law, we are not permitted to respond at this time. Seeing as there are no green sheets, that's just a friendly reminder for the future. That brings us to item number 12, representative reports. So we'll start with CUTA, Mr. Reardon. Welcome.
President Lane, Superintendent Yester, board members, and district leadership. My name is Sean Reardon. I'm president of the Cabrillo Unified Teachers Association. I'd like to welcome Mary Beth Alexander, our new board member, and congratulate Freya for her continued service and her victory. Of course, Rob and Kirk have heard enough nice stuff about him, but I still have my speech to say. So, yeah, I'd like to thank and honor those two for their hard work and for all that work being done for what is called the voluntary contribution to the community. And the real reward is the legacy that they have left behind of dedication to our students here on the coast side. Well, those guys worked hard, but someone's been working a lot harder, and that's Patty, our classified employees who hold this place together. And we know they're the first face in the morning that see people, and they're the ones who turn off the lights and sweep up And in the first violin position, they're the ones that say, amend agenda. So, Patty, thank you for your long time dedication. We phone banked together, and your cool candor and understanding of the district has been a generous contribution for so many years here. Thank you. So now it's on to business. I want you guys to approve that sunshine letter so we can sit down and work together to improve this contract for our teachers and for our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Okay, do we have CSEA here? Diane, present? Nope. Okay. All right. Brings us to item 13, reports, information, and presentations, starting with 13A, receiving the report on Cabrillo Unified School District's music program. Joy Dardanelle.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to make a comment when I have my laptop up. I'm not like surfing the web. I'm looking at your presentation so I can face you, just so you know.
Thank you, Sophia, for that clarification. So good evening, Board President, Sophia Lane, and new trustees of the board, returning trustees of the board. And tonight, our first presentation of the evening is on our school district's music program. And this is really a presentation that's going to be done by Walter Anderson, who's our high school music teacher and band director. And I will just take this moment right now to appreciate a couple of things about Walter. We started this project and research about what was happening in our district's music programs last year. And during this time period, I had an opportunity to really get to know Walter as a musician, as a huge advocate for the music program, and also somebody who has a unique rapport with the students in his class. Just last night, I was at the high school watching the chorale and band musical performance, and it is just really amazing to see a skilled teacher working so closely with his students through years of working together and building a real inspiring group. And I just have really enjoyed my time getting to know Walter better also. With that, I'm going to talk to you about why we actually were working together. And that is going to be about the goals of the program, of this report, which was really to establish communication and coordination between the music programs across the school district, from elementary, middle school, and the high school, to explore some of the challenges of implementing an equitable and robust music program at all of those levels. And then at the end, to develop and present some recommendations, some ideas that would address those challenges. We had 4 essential questions that we continued to look at through the year. The first was, what is the TK through 12 Cabrillo Unified School District music program? It's actually a big question, so that really helped. The next one was thinking about it from a student's perspective. What affects participation in the music program? And then from a school-based perspective, meaning the logistics and all of those other things that come into play, what affects the participation in the music program? And last but not least, but what are some of those ideas to improve accessibility to our music program? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Walter Anderson so he can share the information that he's compiled. One thing I will say is that this is Walter's first formal report to the board, and as a courtesy to him, as an excellent presenter, to give him the opportunity to share his presentation and save your questions and comments till the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Good evening, everyone. The rest of the presentation follows the outline of these questions very closely. So the next slide is the diagram of the music program through the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school. Very first, taking a look at the elementary schools, you see that each one has 5th grade band offered. And then El Granada, Hatch, and Kings Mountain have Music for Minors, which is a Bay Area nonprofit that specializes in elementary school music education. And then at Hatch, the music program is taught by Kitty Ray of Miss Kitty's Harmony Road, which is a local private music school. Those programs feed into the bands at CUNY, which are taught by Ms. Portola-Swiggle. She also teaches the 5th grade band programs. Not pictured here, but also offered to 6th and 7th graders is the wheel class, which does involve a musical element, generally speaking guitar. And then at the high school level, down here, we have the concert band, which is for 9th graders, and then the marching band and the jazz band for upperclassmen, generally speaking again. Not pictured here is also the Pilarcitos music course, Music Cipher, which is a spoken word-based course that involves music composition, there's hip-hop, music engineering. They actually go out to the recording studio and record their own compositions, which is pretty incredible. And also, you can see over here on the side, the chorale class, which is the only vocal, sort of like choral class in the elementary school, middle school, high school music program. It's not fed into by any of the previous classes. So next, we're going to take a look at some of the data that I gathered regarding the band program enrollment at CUNY. Just to be absolutely clear, the next few slides contain data that was gathered last year. So the most recent data set here is the 2017-2018 school year. And what you can see on here, each colored line is an individual grade level cohort that progresses through 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And you can see that historically there has been a constant rate of attrition, and that in the past 2 years there's been a significant dip in enrollment. And you can see that here with the 6th grade class of 2016-2017, and this blue dot right here is the 6th grade class of 2017-2018. Significant factors that we discovered that could be contributing to this is the increasing number of elective options as students go through the 7th and 8th grade, significantly more options than at the 6th grade level. And that's also supported by the fact that 2 years ago the 6th grade elective offerings were expanded, which correlates with the drop in enrollment here. Using the same data set and time frame, we're going to take a look at the high school, and what you see is that there's, compared to the middle school music program, there's little to no attrition at the high school, Half Moon Bay High School music program. So students who join the band at the 9th grade level tend to continue through to graduation. Not pictured here is chorale data. If I were to add that in, all of these lines would get absolutely wild. Enrollment in chorale is up and down from one year to the next because it's a singleton course. Students who enroll in it, generally speaking, have no prior music experience, or maybe they took band in middle school. And there are a lot of upperclassmen who it's their first music course. Continuing on, excuse me. Next, we have some anecdotal evidence that is on the next slide. And I just want to qualify it a little bit by introducing a concept. When I was organizing this data, we realized, Joy and I, that it might be construed as a little negative, but really it comes from my own philosophy of addressing problems when I'm a musician. When I go into the practice room, the phrase that comes to mind for me is "eat the frog," which is something that was taught to me by one of my teachers. And it's the idea that if you have something unpleasant to do, it's just best to get it out of the way. And so when you go into the practice room, you don't focus on the parts of the song that you're good at. You focus on the parts of the song that need improvement. So, with that in mind, these are some ideas that were gathered from interviews with colleagues and parents and students. I'll just read through them. Between colleagues, we perceived a lack of continuity within the music program as a whole with regards to curriculum, grade level goals and standards, and a lack of a dedicated advocate for the music program at the elementary school level. We also perceived that the California State Standards for Music are predicated on a consistently implemented K-12 music program. Many of the educators and parents that I spoke to were disappointed by the relatively small amount of lesson time for the 5th graders in the 5th grade band program, generally speaking, 30 minutes once a week. And some students that I spoke to chose, these are students who are not currently in the music program, some students chose not to continue in the music program because they were interested in trying other elective classes. And other students indicated frustration at the transition to band instruments in the 5th grade from the Music for Minors or Miss Kitty's classes, and expressed interest in a choir at the elementary school or middle schools. And then many parents that I spoke to also lamented the choice that middle schoolers must make between band and other electives. So the next slides after this one involve ideas for that can be implemented to improve accessibility to the music program. And I just want to qualify these also a little bit. As the high school music teacher, I must admit that I may be a little biased in this, and I do not have an administrative credential. I am not on the school board here. So I will, of course, defer to the judgment and of the school site and district leadership when it comes to these. But these are the ideas as I came up with them. Create a strong, flexible, create a flexible yet strong K-12 music program that is consistent with and informed by the California State Standards for Music while still respecting the unique needs and culture of each school site. I think this is our primary goal. Expand implementation of the music program at elementary schools by increasing lesson time and hiring a music teacher to advocate for and focus upon a rigorous and positive elementary school music education experience. Increase flexibility of middle school programming by making it easier for students to take 2 electives, that is band and something else. Add more points of access to the music program so that students are able to successfully enroll in the band program after 6th grade. What we find is that, generally speaking, students that continue in the music program were enrolled in the 6th grade band originally, and they just continued all the way through. And then expand the choral program, potentially culminating in a new parallel arts pathway with classes at multiple school sites. Are there any questions?
Sorry, my thing's not, there it is. So this was kind of really the organized music, so the music in elementary schools is Music for Minors or Harmony Road, but there are lots of teachers in elementary school that do programs.
Yes.
They do, the opera comes, they do songs, they do performances with their songs. Was there any attempt to look at some of that in terms of how teachers are implementing music within their class?
So I must confess, I did not interview specific elementary school teachers on a one-on-one basis, but I talked to some people and we learned a little bit about that. I do know about the opera program. My wife was involved with that a few years ago. There are many different programs that are implemented here and there, but there was a focus during this program to focus on the scheduled offerings that are within the program that are structural, that are intended to be implemented for everyone for access.
Yeah, I guess I ask about those because it sometimes seems to me that if some of those things were called out and maybe made more consistent across the level, the things that are already happening, like the opera started at one school and then it ended up at all the different schools in the different grades. So if there were things that some teachers were doing where they do songs and then they perform them at the fiesta and they do these other things, that there's certain things that if we just provided a little bit more backbone for them, maybe they would help to create some of that consistent programming through elementary. And they're already existing. People are doing them for a reason. There's energy behind them. They're excited about them. So I guess I just threw that out as, versus coming in and saying, we need a whole new music program for the elementaries and it's going to look like X and the teachers are overwhelmed and can't necessarily implement it. We might not have funding for a new music teacher. Another way of trying to create a little bit more backbone to some of those. That was the reason why I mentioned that.
No, I understand. So. Yeah, it's a great point moving forward, I think.
Well, and with what you said, Freya, the Peninsula Girls Choir, that was my question. Maybe, looking at that and how that's working.
So, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. So I have several students who are involved in the Peninsula Girls Chorus, and it's a great program, but I think that when we're talking about the district music program, we can't assume that things are going to be available outside of the school sites to everyone. It's a great resource, and I absolutely encourage my students to be involved with it. And there's so many great things in the arts community around here. And I don't want to be dismissive of those at all, but I think it's important to think about the scheduled programs.
Well, right, and that's private where these are, within our school district, so it is different.
Yeah.
2 points to maybe talk about a little bit more. You pointed out how the 6th grade enrollment has gone down consistently the last few years. Can you talk about that in relationship to the 5th grade program, which, if I recall correctly, was implemented to help feed the middle school program?
Right.
And even prior to that, even some of the middle schools were hit and miss whether there was programming at all. There were recorders in many classrooms. So praise to the teachers who have carried the ball, definitely, for music. But, and then the other piece of research around music education.
Yeah, so the first point you're asking about the relationship between the 5th grade band and the 6th grade band. Unfortunately, when I was looking through the data, there was only 4 years of data for the elementary school band program because it hasn't been implemented for very long, and it's difficult to perceive trends, I think, at that point. I did not find any correlation between enrollment at the 5th grade level or at the 6th grade level. And then the second point, I'm sorry, can you rephrase it?
Just background for why invest in music early in elementaries.
Why it's important. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I don't have the data right here in front of me, but just off the top of my head, I can say that a strong music education has been shown to improve various other study skills for young students. There have been studies that shown that people who study music from a very young age actually develop new neural pathways that other people simply don't have. It's one of the only things that students can do in school that involve psychomotor, cerebral, and emotional skills all at the same time. I feel like it's really valuable. I'm kind of flustered right now, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A moment too. So I think just to address some of your questions, one of the things that Walter and I started with was a huge concept about what is the music program, and we looked at so many different things. Last year, I did a presentation on performing arts and visual arts in the school district as a whole, and there we did talk about different music offerings that are available throughout the district. One of the reasons why through that process of working together over the past year that we really narrowed it down was because we really want to look at what are we actually able to provide for all students, what can we really impact at a district level. And there are a lot of programs, but not all of them are actually offered at all of the school sites. So for example, even the San Francisco Opera program is not available at all school sites, or the Girls Choir, Peninsula Girls Choir, is not available at all school sites. So we really wanted to focus on, if we were going to make systemic change, what that systemic change could look like throughout the district. So we did consider those ideas. And also to share some of the correlations between 5th and 6th grade, one of the pieces of information that Walter presented was that there has been a decline in the 6th grade enrollment, and you could see it. And what we found was in the discussion was that there has been an increase in elective options at CUNA, which may have a bigger impact on it than rather just the actual experience in 5th grade. So we do see a trend, but it isn't necessarily, as Walter said, directly related to the actual enrollment at 5th grade, but rather there are other things that are other factors that affect the enrollment by the time they get into 6th grade.
Thank you, Joy.
Any other comments or questions? Fran?
I was just kind of curious, so I thought this was great pulling all of this together, so I appreciate your work on this last year. I was just kind of curious, given our financial constraints as they are right now, probably the likelihood of having a full-time music person at each elementary school would not be possible. I'm just kind of curious about what next steps we could do to kind of help guarantee that we have more of this robust music program that's channeling up to the high school where we already have really strong programs. So I was wondering, because there was a list of possible actions, but some of them I'm not quite sure were quite as conceivable, not necessarily possible or practical at this point. So I'm just kind of curious, maybe if you guys have thought about next steps, like practical next steps, what you're looking at in terms of goals in the next 6 months to a year and a half, if there's some immediate things.
I'll let Joy finish.
Okay.
So Walter and I have really spent a lot of time on these ideas and have talked about it so much, and that's, I said anything that involves money, let me answer the question. But I think that, part of what I think is great about the work that Walter did, and I really wanted to let him loose on this, is that he's really a visionary about the music program, and we wanted to make sure that we shared a vision that was really true to his ideas and the research that he had. In terms of the realistic, how do we get this to happen, I think that we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we really want as a goal? And then how we get to that goal, then we can figure out the smaller pieces. So for example, if what we want to do, and we've discussed this before, is if what we want to do is create access to, for example, high school band, then how can we create multiple points of access? That's something that's actually cost neutral. We could think about it as creating different ways of having, for example, audition-based music classes versus grade-based music classes, or grade-level-based music classes, so that students have opportunities to participate when maybe their schedule is more open junior and senior year, rather than having to make that choice their freshman year to participate. So I think that when we think about that, we could start thinking about the different types of partnerships we have with outside organizations, the parent-teacher organizations, and think about that as well. But definitely, when we think about any types of movement forward with next steps, we have to think about music, not just within the context of music, but music within the context of visual and performing arts as a whole, as well as within the larger context of education, within the larger context of social emotional learning, and within the larger context of what it is that we're trying to do to stay solvent as a district and move our whole community forward.
Thank you, Joy. That's a really helpful context, and I do understand the constraints the district is under. I also believe that how we think about messaging, once we figure out what the goals are, that it is cost neutral to communicate to parents the value of music. And so maybe it's not all on the school district's shoulders, but that we create some other partnerships in some way. But that having that core messaging and who is the best person to message might be something that we think about going forward. While I asked Walter about kind of just the general value to students, before coming over tonight, I Googled some of the current cognitive science, and a study from 2017 at USC, some of the results published from a longitudinal study that started in 2012. Music training accelerates maturity in areas of the brain responsible for sound processing, language development, speech preparation, and reading skills. A growing body of research has shown poverty can greatly disrupt or hinder brain development for children, affecting their performance in school. This study has documented longitudinal changes in the brain of children receiving music education that are distinct from typical development. And so the author of this particular study last year said, together, these results demonstrate that community music programs, and this was 6 and 7-year-olds, can offset some of the negative consequences that low socioeconomic status can have on a child's development. And so when we think of, later in this board meeting, we're going to be voting on policy for English language learners, and it's very specific to English language learners. If we start to look at things holistically, how can we have these pieces and show value of that connectivity within our program? And so I'm just, I know Kirk said thank you back in the spring for bringing forth visual and performing arts, and he would hope that that continued on a regular basis. And I think messaging as a whole is going to be healthy for us. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim, for helping with that messaging this evening.
I just want to add a huge thanks to both of you for doing all this work. You make it look so easy and simple when you bring it to the stage, much like Crystal does with her piles of numbers every time. Audrey does with LCAP stuff. And thank you to Walt also for all the inspiration and knowledge and skills you give our kids to grow and develop, not only in their musical interests, but also in their hearts and in their minds more broadly. So thank you, both of you, for bringing this to us and having us that much more better informed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, we can move on to item number 13B, receive report on the strategic education plan goals 3 and 4 update. Joy Darnell.
Hello, good evening. Board President Sophia Lane.
Hi.
Hello again. We're just going to get this started. So, thanks, Ruthie. So, as I do every year, I have the opportunity to present our strategic education plan updates, also known as our local control accountability plan, LCAP for short. And this evening I'll be presenting on goals 3 and 4. As a reminder, our strategic education plan, also our local control accountability plan, is part of the local control funding formula for school districts that we're required to develop and adopt annually, and an update as a 3-year LCAP plan. Goals 3 and 4 are on parent engagement and safe and supported schools. Specifically, Goal 3 focuses on implementing a stakeholder communication plan to support parental involvement and regular updates. The strategies that we're using in our LCAP for this year, or our strategic education plan for this year, includes training community liaisons. This year, our community liaisons participated in 5 full days of training to really develop a stronger skill set in high-quality translations and interpretations, in which they received a certificate at the end of that time, at the end of that training. We also are working on improving our digital communication, which I think is one of the most exciting pieces that I'd like to share with you this evening because it is so new. Our school district is going to be moving toward School Messenger as a platform for communication. And there are several portions of this, including Communicate, which is the way that we will be able to communicate out to families, similar to what we call the robocall right now. It also integrates with text messaging, phone calls, and email notifications. We also have what's called Presence, which is referring to our website. So the website integration will help us to update websites more quickly at the district level, site levels, and be able to get that information out to the community. What's unique about this, a little bit different than how our current website works, which requires a lot more skill to be able to update, is that it'll be able to give us access at different levels so that school sites could also update their schools' websites more quickly. And it integrates with the next piece, which is the custom app, which means that our school sites will be able to also push notifications into an app that will be available on people's phones, whether they're community members or parents or other staff who are just interested in finding out more information. This move into better digital communication tools is really going to give us an opportunity to change the way that we communicate so that it's a lot more frequent, a lot more timely, and also more targeted to the populations that we want to reach. And with all different types of communication, it's so important that we have timely communication. And with that, I also want to add that with our planning, we are also working on the actual communication strategy, making sure that as much as we have our tools in place, we also have the plan and the strategy of how often and what types of communication we send out. Our plan also includes training, first for our admin staff, our district principals and directors, and then the site support staff as well, and then leading into also training teachers all before the end of the school year. And then the other small piece that we're also going to be adding is going to be our secure file, which is going to allow us to share information with parents in a private, secure location. That could include, for example, our standardized testing scores being sent out to parents. So that's something that's really exciting, very new, and you will be seeing more of that as we roll it out within the next couple of months. We also have an expansion of our family engagement training. Our schools that participated in our family engagement training last year were Hatch Elementary School, Fair Lawn View Elementary School, and Pilarcitos High School. This year we have Cunha Intermediate School, El Granada, and Kings Mountain participating. And this is a way that we're really looking at how we change and modify, enhance our school parent-based events to really focus on student learning and tailor it to the needs of the students, but also to the families that we work with. As I mentioned, with digital communication, we're also looking at different ways of increasing our avenues for communication, whether that's through digital communication as well as parent communication and different types of meetings. And last but not least, we want to make sure that one of our strategies is how do we monitor this. So we are going to continue to use our parent family engagement surveys that we have used in the past. And I'll be sharing a little bit of that information. Yes, Panorama. So One of our goals is looking at the parent participation of unduplicated pupils on school site council. As a reminder, unduplicated pupils means English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and foster youth. As a reminder too, because our LCAP is a 3-year plan, the baseline is based on our 2016-17 year, and they're looking at adding 6% or 3% from one year to the next. So the goal for the 18-19 year is to have a 6% increase from the 35% of 2016-17. As of last year, we already met the goal of the 6% in having 41% of our families participating on our school site councils. We also have our climate survey target, which is looking at how we increase our parents' responses on our climate survey, increasing it by 6% from our 2016-17 baseline. In 2016, we had 25% of our families participate, and in 2017, we had 7%. So similar to the prior slide, we've met that 6% increase last year, and our new survey is going to be scheduled for January 2019. The reason for this is that in the past we've done the survey really early in the school year for a lot of parents. Those parents who are kindergarten parents new to school sites, or 6th grade parents at Cunha, or our 9th grade parents at the high school really hadn't had a lot of time to get to know the school before answering a survey about their involvement and participation in the school. So we're moving our survey to January in order to give parents an opportunity to experience the school sites and improve the quality of the data that we get. The other piece that we're looking at in terms of metrics are our parent engagement events. This is a lot in conjunction with the Family Engagement Institute. We want to increase the average number of parent engagement events by 2 events at least from our 2016-17 baseline. In 2016-17, we had approximately 1 event. Now this sounds strange because we all know that we have multiple events like open house and back to school night and parent conferences and what really counts as an event. One of the reasons why we use 1 event as a baseline is because with the Family Engagement Institute, we're really looking not only at how often do you have open house or back to school night, but how often are you actually having events that are tailored to learning and also the needs of your families. So these types of events are looking more at how are we using, if it's back to school night, really including a literacy element or a student learning element within that, that isn't just reporting how to turn in homework, but actually tailoring to how parents can meet the needs of their students. And so this year, with all of our school sites participating in all the school sites that have participated in the Family Engagement Institute, we are really increasing the quality of the types of family engagement events that we see across the district. Moving on to Goal 4. The Goal 4 is about creating a positive school climate where students can feel safe and supported. Our strategies include positive behavior interventions and supports. Just about 2 weeks ago, we had a coach who came to all the school sites to work with the principals and their site teams on improving the way that we support our students through positive behaviors, interventions, and supports. This looks like making sure that we're actually teaching behaviors in class, the ones that we expect students to have, and making sure that they know how to navigate through different types of challenges that they might have. We also have district-wide attendance and truancy notification procedures that's very consistent, and it helps to make sure that we're identifying students who have truancy or chronic absence as early as possible so that we can meet with them and their families to ensure that we're providing them with whatever supports that we can to improve attendance. We also have transportation for at-risk students, so any of the buses that you see that say Cabrillo Unified help to support students who are at risk. Some of those are going to communities that are being bused to school sites, for example, El Bernard and Fair Longview, and then it also helps to support our students in special education. We have wellness services for students. That includes our school-linked services, counseling and interns, academic counseling services at the high school, and new this year, and I had talked about it last year at one of the local control accountability plan presentations, are multi-tiered systems of support. which is basically the concept that as much as we have instruction in the classroom or as much as we teach about behavior, there are tiers of support that we need to make sure that we're coordinating for students who need additional levels of support. So this is about identifying students who need that support and making sure that they have the targeted supports necessary. In looking at the data, one of the pieces is about chronic absence rate. This is one of the newer metrics that the state is looking at very closely on the dashboard, which I had talked about at the last board meeting. Our goal was to decrease our chronic absence rate by 0.2% from the baseline year. And currently, the information that we most currently have was that it actually increased by 0.3%. One of the things that happened when we created our chronic absence rate, we actually created that goal of 2% without looking, it was in isolation of actually looking at how our data compares at the state and the county levels. So I think that it was, in looking at that, we want to still continue to decrease our chronic absence rate and use the truancy procedures as well as that early notification to families to find out why parents and students are having challenges. A lot of times when we actually dig into the data, it's related to possible anxiety or other types of challenges that students are having at home, and we deal with that on an individual basis and providing support. The other metric that we're looking at is the suspension rate, which is to monitor and maintain the suspension rate to be below 3%. And as you can see, our data has been consistent, relatively consistent, if not decreasing, from going from 3.6% to 2.2% in the 17-18 school year. A lot of things that can contribute to that are the use of the positive behaviors interventions and supports, and also a closer look at alternatives to suspension, including restorative justice, that some of our school sites are really using to support students. We also have our expulsion target, which is to monitor and maintain the expulsion rate to be less than 0.1%. Now, just as within context, 0.1%, what we're saying is if there's one student, then let's let it be one student. But technically, sometimes if it's one student, it could be 0.3%, even if it's only one student. So our expulsion rate, when we look at the 2015-16 data, was at 0. At 2016-17, it was 0.06%, which is equivalent to 2 students. And then 2017-2018, 0.03% is equivalent to 1 student. Expulsions are very challenging and they're very individually based. I think that we can provide a lot of different supports. The multi-tiered systems of support for behavior, academics, wellness support help us to support students before they get to the point of expulsion. And every expulsion is a very individual case. We also have the dropout rate, so the target would be to monitor and decrease our high school dropout rate to, by 0.3%, and then monitor and maintain that middle school dropout rate at 0.1%. Just within context, the way that dropout rates are calculated is that if a student leaves our school and then never shows up at another school, then it's considered a dropout rate. So they actually track students throughout the state and sometimes throughout the country to find out where these students are. And that's one of the reasons why with our dropout rate and our graduation rate, we don't calculate it internally, because it's really about them popping up somewhere else in the system after they leave our realm, if you will. So currently our dropout rates for 2015-16, 2016-17 have been at 1.1%, which has been consistent, and the data for the 17-18 school year has not yet been released. Once again, we do not have control over the data to be released because it's calculated at the state level based on tracking individual students who leave our system. I think that that's a tough question. I'm not totally sure how they track every single person, because it's hard to know whether or not they actually arrived at that place. So in looking at the graduation rate, our goal is to increase our high school graduation rate by 0.5% based on the 15-16 baseline. And as you can see, The 15-16 baseline was 97.2%, and it decreased to 95.9% at Half Moon Bay High, while our district rate went from 89.8% up to 90.2%. And as I said, the 2017-2018 information has not yet been released because the graduation rates are calculated at the state level, again, based on cohort data and whether the students actually graduated somewhere, not necessarily at our schools. So in summarizing my thoughts about this presentation, I know that overall we continue to make progress in both parent engagement and student safety and well-being. We are still targeting areas for growth. Some of it is that when we finally do this data analysis, there are different areas that we want to delve into more deeply. And so this is our first share of the information so that we can actually dig in a little bit more, looking at our subgroups. For example, looking at graduation rates for our English learners, looking at graduation rates for our socioeconomically disadvantaged students. And then with that deeper dive on that information, then we can also decide on how we want to revise our plans moving forward in the new local control accountability plan. We know that we are improving our tools for parent communication and our avenues for parent engagement. I think those are two areas of strength for us this year. And our development of our multi-tiered systems of support, which supports our academic and our behavioral interventions, is a huge piece in how we create structures to support students, given whatever resources that we have available, to ensure that we can continue to make progress on our targets in both parent engagement but also safety and well-being of all of our students. So thank you, and are there any questions?
And thank you, Joy, for summarizing everything. It's always great to get this information. And it always seems like some of those data points are out of our control in terms of truancy. And I think you mentioned it here, but I think it's important to remember that sometimes those things are just indicators, and when you look further down to find what really is causing those things and whether or not it's really impeding learning or not, which is really our goal, are important things to look at. Because on its own, chronic absenteeism doesn't necessarily mean that something's wrong or not, but it can. And so it sounds like we've used this data in a way that helps us to actually make sure that children are being educated properly versus just the data for data's sake. So I really appreciate the way that you analyze that.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for, the presentation in general, very informative and very helpful in understanding more and more depth every time you come and share with us this information, kind of the complexity of pieces that come together to make these, few words on a slide really come to life. And in particular on the parent engagement, family engagement piece, and your note about the implementation of School Messenger, I think is so incredibly exciting that you'll have a platform that will enable you to communicate with much more facility and efficiency with our community. That's really essential, and I think clearly feeds into goal 4 as well in terms of creating an environment where families feel safe. So if the families don't feel safe, it's hard to see how the students will. So thank you for endeavoring. I know it's not, any infrastructure change like that is not easy. It will take time, no doubt, but thank you for that piece in particular. And also for just in general, I just want to comment and kind of informally add to the quality, the improvement in the quality and quantity of communications that has come out of the district in collaboration with the schools over the past several months, in particular as events come up. There's been no shortage of those, and I appreciate, again, the dedication and every time, it's not only reactive things, but it's also the proactive work that's been done, through the district and again through each of the individual schools as well, to proactively communicate more with anti-bullying, that huge series of anti-bullying events and the emergency preparedness event. That investment, I think, is going a long way. So I wanted to especially thank you for that and add that to your many accomplishments.
Thank you. I will add to that the director, Rick Alva, the director of technology, I apologize. The director of technology, Rick Alva, has been instrumental in bringing School Messenger to our district and creating a realistic rollout plan and making sure that we complete our goals with communication. So thank you to him.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any other comments or
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joy. Okay, so that brings us to item 13C, receive report on school plan for student achievement for elementary school sites. So the SIP says, is that you again? There's Irene. Okay, Irene's going straight. Okay. Ms. Preciado. Presentation.
Good evening, Board, Senior Cabinet. I'm really excited to be here, and congratulations to our new board members and those that were re-elected. So really excited to be here today to talk about our school plan for student achievement for our elementary schools. In January, we will be coming back to present the school plans for secondary schools. So the school plan for student achievement, it's an annual process that the schools engage in with all of the stakeholders. So what is a school plan for student achievement? The school plan for student achievement includes the budget that comes in from the federal government. So your Title I and your Title III funds are specifically outlined in the school plan to ensure that we are looking at those funds to support students who are at risk. English learners, students of poverty, and students who are having difficulty with language arts or mathematics. We set goals specifically in the plan to support the achievement and the improvement of student academic achievement in those areas. So how is this plan developed? We look first and foremost at our local control accountability plan. Our local control accountability plan guides the development of the single plan or the school plan at each of our individual sites. We also ensure that all stakeholders are involved in the process. We conduct in-depth data analysis, and all of this is through the process of the cycle of continuous improvement. Our local control accountability plan, Mrs. Dardanelle just reviewed with us Goal 3 and Goal 4. So let's review again Goal 1. All students shall have necessary academic skills to be ready for college and career. And we also have a particular focus on reclassifying students who are identified as English learners, ensuring that they have achieved competency and proficiency in the English language in all domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Our second goal is to increase the percentage of students who are engaged in curriculum and that is preparing them for college and career. And Goal 3, ensuring stakeholder communication, supporting parental involvement. And Goal 4, creating a positive climate in our schools where the students feel safe and supported. The involvement from all stakeholders has to be meaningful. It isn't simply attending a meeting or being present in the classroom. It is actually involved in the development of the school plan. Being very insightful, giving feedback, giving opinions on how the goals can be created and who needs the support and how the funds are going to be spent. The school site council is tasked with approving the school plan, so they are the primary stakeholders in the review, but everyone is part of the process. Our English Learner Advisory Committee, made up of parents of English learners, are also an advisory council to this. But our schools are also presenting the single plan or developing the school plan with teachers, like the leadership committees, and with PTO, classified staff. So everybody is part of it, and it is the school site council that gets to vote on the final outcome to the plans that were presented to you today. We are involved in the data analysis. With the new school plan, it is required that we review the California school dashboard data. Some schools use this or the data is available, other schools are not. For example, graduation rate will only be applicable for high school, but we review the data for English language arts and mathematics, the achievement of the SBAC or the state test, the progress of the English learners, and we also look at district and school data. So we're looking individually at panorama surveys, we're looking at the attendance rate, school climate, and reclassification rate by school. How do we begin the process? Well, if you look at the continuous improvement cycle, because our plans are created on a yearly basis, we are reviewing the process. So we begin at the blue arrow, share results. So we begin by sharing the results with all of our stakeholders, and that allows us to begin to make changes, identify new goals, we identify objectives to achieve the goals, and then we specify how we're going to target those goals, and we look at the measures. How are we going to make sure that we get there, and how will we measure along the way? A continuous cycle of improvement means that we are continuously reviewing these plans. They are presented to you today. They will, if approved, then we will begin to implement the plans. And throughout the year, the principals and the staff will continue to make updates and changes as needed. At the end of the presentations, I will be bringing the principals back, so if there are any questions on any of the plans. Let me remind you that in the interest of time, we are being very brief, and the principals have about 3 to 5 minutes, and they're only doing a couple highlights. You've received the plans, they're very extensive, because now they're aligned to ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act. Now it is mirrored with the Local Control Accountability Plan. It's much more extensive. So let me first welcome our principal from Hatch Elementary School, Mr. David Purcell.
Thank you. Good evening, Governing Board and Senior Cabinet, and congratulations, Mrs. Alexander. And I think I have my hatch again with sort of many of my parents here, but good. All right, so I'm David Purcell, Principal at Hatch Elementary. So I'm going to present you the 4 goals that we have for Hatch, for a school academic plan. Goal number 1 is to improve the proficiency in English by 3% in all grade levels, as well as to increase the rate of reclassification for English learners. 2 highlights about this goal is to progress monitoring progress of students' proficiency levels in the classroom and offering multi-tier systems of support, as Mrs. Dardanel explained, how we can support students in the classroom and outside the classroom to reach those levels of proficiency. Another highlight about this goal is to provide teachers professional development in the major areas of need in curriculum and instructional strategies. Goal number 2 is to improve the proficiency levels in math by raising by 3% as measured by the California Assessment of Students' Progress and Performance, the state test for California. And the 2 highlights for this goal are really crucial because we just got the newly adopted math curriculum bridges. So the key component about this goal is to provide teachers with professional development and time for planning, analyzing data, and collaboration time. Another highlight for this goal is to monitor again the progress of the student through universal design for learning lessons and following the curriculum, scope, and sequence pacing guide. Goal 3 is to increase the parent involvement. And this is based on the Panorama Family Survey. We just got data from last year, and this year we'll be administering this Panorama Survey in January 2019. And the 2 highlights for this goal is to increase the involvement of parents in our 4 major groups, Parent-Teacher Organization, Spanish Immersion Parents Association, the English Language Advisory Committee, as well as the School Site Council. And we do that through offering bilingual support, collaboration, and interactive engagement. Another highlight for this goal is to create enough family engagement activities or events after school. And as of now, we plan to have technology nights, literacy nights, positive behavior intervention, and support informational meetings, and coffee with the principal that we just had one last week, and it was very well attended and successful. We provided parents information about how to prevent cyberbullying. Goal 4 is to increase the percentage. Well, this one is measure the percentage of families who responded favorably the Panorama Family Survey for school climate and school safety. And the two highlights for this goal, one is to keep working on the positive behavior intervention support by providing lessons, role plays, assemblies, monitoring behavior. And one thing that we have very strong at our school is that we have a strong PBIS team that we analyze data, we get together, come up with different action plans according to the frequency of the behaviors that we have in any setting of our school. Another highlight for this goal is that thanks to PTO, a Parent-Teacher Association organization, we have Playworks. It's a fantastic and phenomenal program because it supports students emotionally and socially as well as academically. And it focuses, as you can see, on conflict resolution strategies, developing leadership skills, and academic success. One of the highlights about the Playworks is that provides students a very structured recess time, and students that self-manage their behavior and they're engaged in different games. We have junior coaches, about 15 students that provide coaching to the students how to play different games at recess, thanks to PTO. All right, so those are my major 4 goals. My CIPSA plan is about 73 pages, so you can imagine how big it is. But I would like to introduce our next principal, and Mrs. Ladd, Flor Granada.
Good evening. I'm here to present our slides and our highlights. Our first goal is to implement our balanced literacy practices daily to increase our grade level reading benchmark. Our highlights, one of the things I'm especially proud of is our professional development in the district and at our school. And one of the things that our School Site Council came up with was to give teachers an opportunity to determine what their areas of need were and where they wanted to explore their own professional learning. So we provide opportunities for teachers to attend professional development that they want. And last year we had 3 teachers attend Teachers College Institute in New York City. We had our kindergartner teachers attend a conference on early literacy practices, and our first grade team attended a conference on first grade phonics. I also wanted to highlight that we have what we call a cupcake club, which doesn't go against our meal plan or our healthy thing. It's the name of our mascot, the dolphin, is the name Cupcake, because we were able to fund our statue by selling cupcakes. So anyway, the Cupcake Club is an enrichment program for our kindergartners where our teachers develop thematic units for them, for the students who are basically in an after-school program. So they've developed these thematic units based on science and social studies concepts that actually reinforce literacy skills. So we're particularly proud of those. And then goal 2 is to increase the number of students scoring standards met or exceeded by 5% in math. We're really excited about the Bridges Mathematics program that we recently adopted because it's Common Core aligned, and we're seeing wonderful things in that program. But also in addition to that, one of our highlights is our 4th grade science specialist program. As our children go from being in primary science to upper grade science, we're moving from exploring and developing our vocabulary and understanding how these processes work to actually going into the scientific method and how to formulate a hypothesis, test it, and record our procedures. So our 4th grade science specialist really sets the table for that, for our kids going into the 5th grade science program, which prepares them, of course, for the standardized test in that grade level. And then we also are having a lot of professional development around our new math program, and we supplement that with data talks so that we're looking at all the core areas that our students are tested in. Ms. Dardanelle reviewed our family engagement teams really well, and the only thing that I would have to add to that is that it's very exciting to develop family events. We have lots of family events across all of our schools all the time. I mean, if you're really bored, you just need to go visit one of our schools in the evening, and something's probably going on at one of them, right? So, but what I really like about the training that my team went to, and I have a really robust team, is that that it's really based on our data. And so we looked at all of our data, and we decided to develop literacy events because that was an area where we really wanted parents to be involved with our students. And so we had a Halloween event, which is super, super crazy. And I'll tell you this, the teachers were like, no, we can't do it on Halloween. They're in costumes, you know? But we have so many great pictures of students and parents in the classroom before we had our Halloween parade, and students teaching their parents about how they can help them at home address their reading needs. And so it was a really great event. And then we're coming up on an event, a literacy event that we're dovetailing with another PTO event. So it really is exciting way to bring parents together so that how they can help their kids at home. And finally, slide 4, creating a positive climate. Kings Mountain and El Granada are piloting and exploring Changing Perspectives curriculum, which is building empathy through disability awareness, which is a great program for El Granada to be bringing on board because we have a lot of diversity with our special day classes at our school. In the positive behavior intervention and support area, this year we're going to be developing in the classroom expectation frameworks for swimming. Everybody at El Granada swims, we're safe, we work hard, we're inclusive, and we make good choices. So we're gonna, kids are already swimming in the classroom, but we're really gonna make an actual framework by grade levels. And then we're gonna be putting out a handbook. And we've already started developing that handbook on our website, where you'll see a lot of our core documents on the website. All 4 of these are sort of our foundational work to connect. Our kids are really natural, curious learners, and they have a lot of wonder about the world. And our job in schools is to sort of formalize that process a little bit so that they can really express themselves and reach for their dreams. This process of going through the SIPSA has really helped us put that piece together for our students. I'm really proud of the work that my parents and teachers and all my different leadership groups at school have put together to put our plan together. It's my pleasure now to introduce the principal from Fairlawn View Elementary School, Cesar Gaetan.
Good evening, governing board members, superintendent, and cabinet. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about our school plan. Before I begin, I would like to personally say that I am very delighted to hear how the 4 LCAP goals and every SIPSA go hand in hand together. Even though we have to cite them numerically 1 through 4, you cannot have one without the other. And this is exactly the philosophy that we have embraced at Fairlawn View. 1 plan, 1 philosophy. So I'd like to start by talking about how do we work towards increasing reading fluency. And so we are, at Fairlawn View, we are committed to using Fountas and Pinnell data to determine the interventions and also our professional development needs. We plan to do this at the meetings that the teachers and I will have 3 times throughout the school year in order to offer academic support to our struggling learners. We are proud to offer a multi-tier systems of supports, MTSS. We hear it over and over, but we strongly believe that the sooner you discover the children's needs, that's exactly when they need the interventions, and we're committed to doing that. To address our goal 2, where we plan to increase reclassification rate by 10%, we want to monitor our Lexia reports and ELD data through walkthroughs. Additionally, in order to address the needs of the English language learners that are not meeting the target growth, we are proud to offer an award-winning school program after school that has a Tier 2 curriculum, and this year we will offer chess as a bonus. Goal number 3 is about how to better engage our families, and we plan to move to the 55 percentile according to the Panorama survey. And so we are very happy to have partnered with Higher Expectations, which is a local nonprofit. Together, we work having culturally sensitive practices that, along with the teacher input, they drive our 6 family literacy nights. We plan to have 3 at Farallon View and 3 at Moonridge. We actually began last year and have learned that when you bring literacy and engagement, they go very well together. We also want to express our appreciation to Cabrillo Education Foundation, because thanks to their support, we are able to provide free food and free childcare at each one of our events, which we think is essential. Making sure that everyone feels safe and supported is fundamental at Farallon View. We are a mindful school, and we use transformational life skills. That is the core of social emotional learning. Building self-awareness, self-regulation, stress resilience, and creating healthy relationships. In addition to this, we use PBIS, and we are very happy to have the support of School Link Services counselors. And this year, we partner with Ayudando a Latinos a Soñar, ALAS. They have very generously provided us with 1 bilingual counselor and 1 bilingual social worker. Again, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about our school plan, and I would like to introduce to you an incredible friend and an awesome principal, Ms. Diane Siegel, principal at Kings Mountain.
Good evening, governing board members and senior leadership. At Kings Mountain School, we continue to strive to learn, to grow, and better our students' academic, behavioral, and social emotional outcomes. We do this in partnership with staff, families, students, and our community. Before we begin looking at the data, I wanted to let you know that data at Kings Mountain School can be tricky to report. As I share our goals and our metrics, please keep in mind that statistically, due to our small size, percentages, whether representing growth or decline, are affected by the very small student numbers. And in our growth goals, the percentages reflect a range of 3 to 5 students. So, our first goal is our literacy goal. Presently, our Fontes and Pinnell reading benchmark scores indicate 81% of our students meet or exceed grade level standards in grades 1st through 5th grade. Our goal is to increase that number to 90%. 73% of our 3rd to 5th grade students achieved an overall English language arts score on their CAS tests that met or exceeded grade level expectations. Our goal is to increase that to 83%. The way we're going to be doing that is we will be doing data monitoring, data conferences, and lots of collaboration with teachers around student data and growth. We will continue our targeted word study, which is differentiated and allows us to support growth to all our students. To accomplish our second goal, preparing students for the demands of middle school, we are using our PBIS responsive classroom practices and focusing on our second step curriculum, particularly the units that explicitly teach how to learn and self-advocate. We are measuring the outcomes with our literacy data. Our third goal, parent and community awareness. 80+% of our parents attended back to school night last year. Our goal is to increase our positive family engagement scores of 78% to 85% on the district panorama survey. We are working to update our webpage. We participated in the Family Engagement Institute and are looking forward to our literacy morning in January. We continue a weekly newsletter that includes school-wide and classroom happenings. It is written by classroom teachers and myself, the principal. We have monthly coffee and conversations with the principal. The topics are chosen not just by me, but by our families and teachers. And finally, we have our ongoing school-wide learning celebrations in all the core content areas. Our fourth goal, near and dear to me, all students will respect the diversity, the richness of human differences. In addition to our social and emotional curriculum, second step, we have responsive classroom practices, our PBIS intervention and supports, and we have included Changing Perspectives, which Principal Martha Ladd, which is a diversity and empathy program. We also have added to our second step their bullying prevention units. Our metrics will be our second step classroom climate surveys and district panorama student surveys. And I had more information, but I was told to keep it as short as possible. So thank you all for listening, and we look forward at Kings Mountain School to continue the successful start to our school year this year. I would now like to invite up Irene Preciado to finish up our presentation.
Are there any questions for any of the principals or myself?
No questions, I'll just comment, thank you. This is a huge effort, and I know it, again, doesn't come easily. I appreciate that although these are formal documents that need to be submitted, you know, to correlate with the categorical funds that we get, I think they really capture the flavor of what we're doing at our schools individually to implement the LCAP. So to echo what Mr. Gaitan said, like, it's very helpful to have that clear line of sight between the LCAP and effectively how they're being, the LCAP is being implemented here. I know there's probably things that aren't included in there, but from what I know and have seen, it seems pretty well-rounded in terms of a presentation of how we're actually making that happen on the ground in the schools. So I want to thank you for that and just appreciate the theme that I heard with a lot of these presentations, which is setting the bar high for our kids and supporting them to get there and continuously improving how we do that. So I really appreciate that coming through loud and clear, not just from the presentations today between both Joy and yourselves, the principals and yourself, Irene, but every time you come to us, even with the music presentation earlier, just to see that continuous improvement and striving for the best, knowing that we have practical challenges, still getting creative, getting innovative, thinking outside the box, and evolving to meet our kids' evolving needs is really what we're here to do. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for your support and your leadership.
Thank you. Thanks, Irene. Okay, so brings us to item 13D, receive the first interim budget report. Crystal.
I don't know if I've ever done a presentation this late at night. Probably. Yeah, it's not working for some reason. I can get us through most of it, just won't display. We can go ahead and start.
Does everybody have the presentation on your computer? Maybe we can troubleshoot if we need to. Troubleshoot while Crystal presents if we have, everybody can see.
I have most of them.
Looks like we all have devices, so. I would suggest if it's
In
fine with
lieu of
everybody.
saving budget, we are not purchasing batteries for the mouse any longer. So we're saving money.
All right, so let's troubleshoot and we can get started, I think, in the interest of time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Thank you again so much. Stay with me for a few minutes as we go through what I do feel is a very important report. The next slide is usually the interim financial report slide, which has the timeline of the years that we operate the fiscal report in. And, with when Mr. Anderson was presenting earlier and he shared the Eat the Frog, I definitely must say that we will be eating the frog on this presentation, unfortunately. Are we going to get it? Okay. So, with the interim reports, all interim reports must include a certification. The certification can be positive, qualified, and or negative. Unfortunately, tonight, I am reporting that the district will be certifying a qualified certification for first interim. This is the first time that we have done this. And what that means is that we do not plan on meeting our financial obligations in one of the 3 reporting years that we are required to report on. In relation to first interim, that is our 3rd out year of 2021. At 18-19 budget that I presented in June had cuts in 1920 and in 2021. Although there's not a certification that occurs at the budget time, an effort to create a balanced budget and to really try to focus on planning for those 2 out years, I had chose to present some cuts at that time. Because the severity of that 3rd out year and the new laws required by the state to make sure that districts remain solvent, I have removed those cuts at first interim and chosen to self-certify qualified and show that deficit in that 3rd out year so that we really understand the total impact of the certification and all of the hard work that is before us. So that from budget is year 2 was about $500,000 in cuts, and year 3 that's about $2 million in cuts. Now remember, when I present at budget time, that's based off of the governor's report of the finances for the following fiscal at May revise. So since May, up until first interim reporting, which is the end of October 31, from October 31 to December 13th, of course, things have already changed, unfortunately, not for the better. With the qualified budget, what that does is it brings the financial oversight from the county, and there is a potential risk for downgrading our bond rating. However, we will not be selling any bonds the rest of this year and into next year, so I do think we're actually going to recover okay from that. So the first interim budget key guidance that I usually talk about in first interim. So since adoption of the 18-19 budget, the state fund revenues are above the revenue projections, over $1.5 billion. There we go. Thank you. I'm okay. I got you. All All right, so let's go. Okay, so we'll just do a quick recap. So for the interim financial reports, we have positive, qualified, and negative, and you can see from the timeline below that when we are looking at the financials, often within the fiscal year, we're operating in 2 years, we're lag a year, working on estimated actuals in the current year, and then we're working on planning for the out years, all within trying to report the financials for this year. And so again, I'd like to draw your attention that this year, for first interim, we are we're self-certifying as qualified. It is also important that I mentioned, if we self-certify, that is the best way to get the necessary help and oversight from the county. You would never want the county to come in and change your certification. Okay, so first interim budget key. So the 1.5 billion that I was speaking about. This is really important because we're constantly, hearing on the news that, the state revenues are up and people think, oh, well, if the state revenues are up and I'm paying my property tax, why does the school doesn't have any money? And really despite this increase, we're not going to get an increase in funding for this year. There's no outstanding maintenance factor for 18-19. The maintenance factor is tied to the way that school districts the funding is formulated, which is connected to Prop 98, which of course I could talk about joyfully for about an hour, but I would put everybody to sleep. So just kind of a brief overview of Prop 98. So Prop 98 uses 3 different tests to figure out how school districts will be funded. The first is a fixed percentage of the state general fund revenue. So districts will get 40% of the general fund revenue of the state. And then you have test 2, which is equal funding of the previous years for schools. So if if we don't have enough money for test 1 and that fails, then we kind of move on to test 2. Well, because Prop 98 has some funny formulas in it, they decided back in 1990 to pass Proposition 111, which created test 3. And really that's to protect the state that when the general fund is weak on revenues, they will decrease the funding for districts, and when the state is strong on revenues, it would create this maintenance factor and then pay the offset over the years. So in 18-19, we currently have no maintenance factor. So of that $1.5 million, we will not see any increased funding. The governor has already decreased the one-time money that he had stated districts were going to get at May revise, and instead, so he took that back, and then he slightly increased the LCFF funding. So we still had kind of like a positive like 200,000, but I was actually anticipating I think closer to about 500. So when we look at the planning factors that go into building the first interim budget, we look at all 3 years. And so right now, the Department of Finance is estimating the COLA for 18-19 at 2.71. It's important to remember that now that we are 100% fully funded in the LCFF, our increases will only be at the COLA. Okay, and so the COLA is figured out at the state level. It is not done by counties or different areas of the state, which is really difficult, especially in San Mateo County and in the Bay Area in general, where the cost of living is so high. We also use the STRS employee rates and the PERS employee rates to project the cost of the pensions over the next 3 years. There has been a slight increase in the lottery unrestricted and a slight increase in the lottery restricted. So this lottery unrestricted is used to pay teacher salaries. It's very particular about what it can be used for. It can't be used for paying administrator salaries. This lottery that is restricted, that $53 per ADA, that's our money and our funding that we're supposed to use for adoptions. So it's not a lot. It actually barely pays for an adoption that would have, I don't know, it probably doesn't pay for adoption with a full PD package over the time. And then this one-time discretionary fund has dropped to about 184, and then the mandate block grant that we receive. So when we look at, this is a multi-year projection, also known as an MYP. It gives us the 3 years. We look at unrestricted, restricted, and then the total. So we can see for 18-19 that we are deficit spending about $521,000. Then in 18-19 it grows to 2.5, and in 19-20 it grows to 4.4. So your deficit spending anytime your expenditures exceed your revenues within a given year. A lot of districts do deficit spend. Anytime you deficit spend, then you're obviously eating away your reserve. Legally, the statute requires the districts to hold a 3% reserve. It's really important when we look at the MYP and as we talk about the deficit and that budget shortfall in year 3, that we kind of really grasp the understanding of when we start the budget reductions early, that it has like a compounding effect in the out years. So a lot of times somebody's like, well, no, like if it's $1 today, then it's $1 tomorrow, and it's $1 next day. It actually isn't. So, you know, like I was trying to think of this. I was talking to some of my staff, and I was really surprised. I was like, does this make sense to you? So it did, so I'll try it on you guys. We'll see what happens. So, I mean, you can kind of think about it as if you have $20 a day to live off of. You have 20 and you spend 20. And day 1, you choose to only spend 19. So now you have $1 left over, which means day 2, you now have $21. You only spend 19 because you spent 19 yesterday and that worked out for you, theoretically. So now you end day 2 with $2. Then day 3, you start with $22, you spend 19, now you have $3. So anytime you make a budget reduction earlier, especially within the MYP, you will see that compounding effect in the out years. And that's obviously as long as you're not adding any additional expenditures along the way. So when we look at the budget shortfall in year 3, we actually are short the minimum 3% reserve by just under $4.4 million. So that means it's going to take $4.4 million to get us to 3%. So in 18-19, that 2.6 budget increase that we actually have at the bottom results to, it figures out to be about a 10.21%. It's a healthy reserve. But then in 19-20, it drops to 3.32. So we're only making the 3% reserve in 19-20 by $56,000. So that's based on nothing new, assuming that what we spent this year is the same as next year, and we don't have any emergencies that we're not able to use other funding for. But then in 2021, which is really becoming the perfect storm for the district, our parcel tax is up in 2021. But I also like to call the attention that that parcel tax is only $1.6 million of revenue that we receive. And we are actually negative, again, just under 4.4. So a lot of times people are like, well, what about our Measure S and our Measure M dollars? So those are bond dollars, and they provide the much needed funding for facility improvements, modernization, and so forth. Legally, bond dollars cannot be used to backfill any general fund budget challenges that we face. So a lot of times that can be confusing to people when they see construction going on, and then they may also be noticing budget reductions and hearing the district talk about those. Those funds cannot be used to backfill general fund expenditures. The annual escalation in construction cost is estimated at 10%. So that means the earlier we build, the more we can build for less money. And it's so important to, again, continue to thank the community for their support with S&M, because if it would have not passed, we would have had used general fund dollars to make some of the necessary repairs on our building, which means that budget shortfall would be even worse. So thank you again for your continued support. So just kind of an overview of where Cabrillo sits within San Mateo County. So the spending per student, if we look at just the unified districts, there are 3 unified districts within San Mateo County: Cabrillo, La Honda, right down the street, and then up the road, South San Francisco. So you can see that of the 3, we are low. We're 10,747 average per student. And then when we look, over here at the high school districts, just even the coast in general, La Honda's pretty high. When you look at the rest of what falls along the coast, I think it's kind of interesting how much closer the funding is compared to over the hill. But then you have these spots over the hill, like Millbrae is fairly low. But it just really gives you an idea of, in San Mateo, how different it is within such a small area. And I think that's really important to talk about and to communicate with our community, because they're like, why pay my property taxes? And as I come to you more and we talk about budget, we'll talk about how, yes, the property taxes are a portion, but we will never have an overflowing bucket as, some of these other schools do. Like you look at Portola Valley, even Ravenswood is fairly high, and they are really having challenges with declining enrollment and so forth. But the property taxes are high because they have Facebook and they have these other companies there. And that's also with South San Francisco. With the way that the properties are divided in some of the larger corporations and biotech firms that are up there, they get a huge piece of revenue from that to help them. So my closing thoughts, again, we are at target, which means we will only have increased funding via COLA. Inadequate state funding, I've said it before, I will continue to say it, and the mandated expenses are causing us fiscal distress, a $4.4 million fiscal distress. And those are because of expenditures that are, again, a lot of them are out of our control. They're percentages based on those pensions. That obviously, as a public employee, I'm so thankful for getting, but that cost being just really applied to the pressures of the district with no additional revenue to pay for them is very difficult, and we will start to see that being impossible. There are multiple proposals within education and outside. So again, it goes back to that $1.5 billion surplus that I mentioned earlier. There are all kinds of programs within the state that are fighting for that money. And so again, the advocacy that districts have in our local communities to our representatives is really going to play a huge role in districts being able to increase their funding. So again, I know we hear on the news and we hear our politicians say that we're fully funded, but we are not fully funded. We are only funded at the 07-08 levels. Any questions?
Crystal, have you heard any news about whether the new governor is going to change at all the funding for the state, or understand perhaps these rising pension or healthcare costs or other issues? Has there been any indication yet?
He's been pretty quiet about that. There is another bill going back in January to talk about issuing new amounts for a new target for LCFF. Governor Newsom is very into, what does he call it, cradle to college. So a lot of his focus is going to be on preschool and younger, which is great, but we really are losing traction in the middle. So that's just, if we get them even earlier and we still don't get that increased funding, and we're still gonna have that real large dip when we're trying to serve, serve our kids now TK through 12. So we go to the January budget, I think it's like January 15th. The trends are saying, no more one-time money. If so, it'll be very limited, but I expect us just to receive COLA next year.
So just another way to correct me if I'm wrong, the way I state this. Is it fair to say that the rate at which the pensions are increasing exceeds COLA plus the one-time funds?
Absolutely, like twofold.
Yeah. So, again, trying to think about messaging that we can share as we go out and talk to other people in the community, that our expenses, mandated expenses, exceed available funds. So it's not about how we balance the budget per se.
No, districts do have choices, right, of how we spend our revenue. It's definitely more difficult to make those decisions when we live in such a high cost living area, right? So most districts, their operating budget is anywhere between 82 to 90% salaries and benefits. Benefits cost more in the Bay Area than they do down south. Cost of living is more, so we have to pay our staff more. Yet the percentages are exactly the same as far as the pensions go, across the state. And the healthcare actually for next year, it's kind of leveled out, which is good because we had 11% increase last year. And I don't budget for an 11% increase. I would never think of budgeting for an 11% increase. So that we definitely took a hit. And then so we go, the average is usually like 2.5 to 5 is mid-year. That's usually what we get. And then last year it was 11. This year I think we had a little bit of a savings starting January 1. So really trying to pinpoint early on what the benefits are going to do is obviously helpful to help mitigate, because we have a little bit of money on those lines, kind of waiting for good forecasting information that we can use.
Just want to add a comment that it is really truly shameful that such a politically progressive and relatively wealthy state as ours funds schools in such an inequitable format where we see such differences between zip codes. And I think that's just really kind of embarrassing for our state. And hopefully we'll have some progress, and I'm also not holding our breath, so I appreciate the ongoing really aggressive financial management that you dedicated to our district and our community. It's, again, I've operated in more of a corporate environment where money is flowing and you're feeling good, and you're just kind of doing what you need to do, and then things start to clamp down, and it's like every decision is difficult and every decision is hard, and your spending is conservative, your planning is longer term, and I really appreciate that we are nonetheless in this position, despite all those tremendous efforts, which I think have gotten us without which we would have been in worse shape. So thank you for that. And that's all I can say on the situation. It's we'll figure things out and continue to get creative and kind of work together with our community to figure out what next. Thank you. So brings us to discussion items number 14, and seeing as there are none, we will move on to communications, item 15. Start with Freya.
just want to say thank you again to Rob and Kirk for their years of service. I know they've already gone home to relax, not being here at the meeting, hearing this lovely news about our financial state. They have heard it before, I'm sure. But yes, thank you to Kirk for his 12 years. He was already had one term when I came on the board with him, and he was a great mentor. Rob and him and I all ran together that first time, and he's provided such wonderful insight into making sure that the data that we're using is representative of what is actually happening in our schools, and really trying to make sure that there's progress occurring. And so I really appreciate his work. And Rob, I appreciate his dedication to the parcel taxes, the bonds. He was my cooperator on a lot of those bond campaigns and parcel tax campaigns, and I really appreciate the hard work that he put into this community for the last 8 years and helping to create the educational system that we have today. So thank you to both of them. And thank you to Patty for her years of service. I've only been here for 8 of them, but I greatly appreciate all that you do for the board, all you've done for the district for 29 years here, the dedication that you've had to this community, and I hope that you enjoy your retirement and relax and know that you have done such great work here. So thank you so much for that. And I want to say again, thank you to those who voted for me for the election. I really appreciate being given the opportunity to serve another 4 years. I'm committed to trying to address the challenges that have been brought up here with our financial status, and also look at the exciting opportunities that we have as we've developed the LCAP in the time that I've been here, the new site plans, our multi-tiered interventions, and other programs. It's been really exciting to see that growth, and I'm excited to continue to work on that for the next 4 years. And congratulations to Mary Beth and to Lizette for their new positions. I look forward to working with you and Lizette as well when she's here. And just a reminder for all those voters out there, 3 votes. So every vote really does matter. So if you're ever questioning that, just remember these kinds of elections, and Measure M, which passed by 5. So really appreciate everybody who went out and voted. It was also, I think, kind of a record number, over 13,000 votes for our district. And I think that's really wonderful. It shows that our community really cares and participates and wants to be involved. And we will need that moving forward. So everybody have a wonderful holiday. Stay safe and healthy and happy and warm. And that's all.
It's after midnight. No, I started on the East Coast today, so sorry. First, I want to thank Joy Dardanelle and Walter Anderson for the presentation on music. I clearly have a bias, and do believe the research and the data on brain science and cognitive development on how best to serve individual children in a way that it impacts their other learning. So I really appreciate all that effort, and the fact that we had that message along with the LCAP, which can get a little dry when you're looking at all of the data, but having raised 2 children in the school district that are now off to college and graduate school, I really do admire all of the effort that the individual teachers put in. And as Freya mentioned, the opera program, I remember teachers, multiple years, making sure that the students in their class were learning recorders when there wasn't a music and minors program, and just recognizing the fragility in the elementary years if there's not a focused conversation by the PTOs and PTAs. So thank you for all those people that really do keep that message alive. Both Mr. Reardon and Mr. Anderson invited me to the Open Studios Night, January 11th, if I'm saying this right, Mr. Nazar. Yeah, but anyway, there's going to be music, there's going to be art, and it just sounds like a wonderful evening at the high school. And so it's just that time when you see the kids who have been participating, they get to strut their stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks. And welcome. Thanks.
I wanted to thank everybody for the warm welcome. So today was really fun. In addition to being my birthday, I got to do my first day on the board. And it was really special that Nancy McGee was here too to do it. I just met her a few weeks ago, and I really like her, and I wasn't expecting that, so that was a special treat. And I have to tell you, the highlight was when someone said, well, we have to get you in front of the senator. And I thought, oh, that's cool. So anyway, that was my birthday highlight. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is going to be fun. So thank you all for the warm welcome.
I'll say a few words and we'll go to Jane. I just want to echo the words of thanks to Rob and Kirk, who of course aren't here to hear half of what we have to say, but I'm sure they feel it in their hearts, and all the years of passion and commitment and resilience over the years to serve our kids. You know, in this volunteer role, I think it's just sets the model for our community and how we can really make things happen if we just kind of put in that time, the effort that it needs to slog through the hundreds of pages of documents and whatnot, and just really how those conversations that can sometimes be difficult but are essential to our making progress towards continuous improvement. So thank you to them, and of course, more and more welcome to Mary Beth and Lizette. So excited to be working with you guys and this new challenge and our new growing all-female team, which is pretty exciting. So look forward to working with you guys in these new roles. And of course, Patty, needless to say, we've said it 100 times and can't probably say it enough, we'll miss you, and can only dream and hope. Just send us pictures, because we need to, the grandkids, Mexico, like the whole road tripping thing, we want to see it. So please a little mini blog, Patty's blog. She's gonna be famous now. We knew you when you were here in the district, and of course Roosevelt, our new Patty she'll be the new Rosie, I suppose. So excited to have you join us as well, and being our new brain. So, you know, the shoes are big, but you will absolutely fill them, and we're thrilled to have you with us as well. So, yeah, thanks. I had just the other thing, I had the opportunity to join the President's Day of the CSBA session back in early December in San Francisco, and it was just great to be there again. I had gone to the session together, Kimberly and I, and with Jane a couple years ago when we first joined. So it's cool to just be back in the learning seat and just absorbing and learning best practices, and hopefully, you know, we'll share and learn from each other in the months and years to come. So thank you so much. And we'll go to Jane.
So, in the light, I'll start with our music, because we had a music report tonight, and the high school had the winter music concert. And if you don't think Walter Anderson is well adored, when Walter took the stage, the room erupted with Walter, Walter, and that went on and on. It was amazing to watch the kids. And I will also rat out Walter. He had this bright blue sports coat with snowmen all over. He looked awesome. It was just an awesome thing. Concert was fantastic. Great to see all of our bands and our chorale in operation. So congratulations to Walter and to the music program. It really looks good. Looking forward to this spring when we add our drama program, already off of a wonderful fall season into a spring season. Also had the great pleasure to attend a couple of the literacy nights. I was at Martha's School yesterday for, was it Build a Box, Martha? Yeah, they did the Build a Box literacy event, and I got to check out the Scholastic book. They did it as part of the Scholastic book sales, and I'm not in a classroom teaching anymore, so it's hard for me to keep up with what the latest and the greatest is that the kids are reading. So it was a blast just to roam the shelves and to reorient and to talk with all the, you know, why do you like that book? Oh, it's so cool. And then I got brought up to date on what's going on. So great to be out and about with the kids. Also a huge thank you to Rob and Kirk. They're just fabulous, and their contributions amazing. And congratulations to Freya and to Lizette and to Mary Beth on your election to the board. I will say about this governing board, the job of running a school district is really difficult. It gets more challenging all the time with all of the pressure, but the absolute commitment of this governing board, a lot of superintendents will tell you the number one thing that drives them off what they do is a governing board. And Cabrillo quite proudly should stand up with the phenomenal job its governing board does and the tremendous support given to the superintendent. You make it very easy to do what we have to do. And then, of course, Patty, this will be hard. I love Rosie to death. She's been fabulous. I got to know her for the year when I was John Corey and me last year, but you know, Patty has been here since the first day I walked through the door, and with the absolute panic about board agenda, what's a board agenda? What am I supposed to do on a board? Don't you worry about a thing. Here's how you do it. And consistently through the years, you know, when I panic, Patty goes, no, it's not a problem, and they don't teach you this stuff in any kind of book. So may you have just marvelous times. May you spoil your grandchildren to death and then turn them back over to their parents on sugar highs and everything else you can think of. Just as a notice, we are having a luncheon in Patty's honor tomorrow, so if you get a chance to attend, that would be fantastic. Yes, it'll be here at noon. So, you know, we again say thank you, and thank you also to all the principals who are out in there. I know that you are tired. I know this time of year. We talk about the 100 days of May, but the build up to the winter break is equally stressful for all involved. So thank you so much for being here this evening.
Just real quick, adding on to the superintendent. Thank you all for the lovely well wishes. They are truly, truly appreciated. My wish for you all is to know the joy that we are feeling now, that when it comes your turn to retire, that you truly feel this joy and enjoy every moment, because we are enjoying it now, and we are going to enjoy it in the future. Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay, move on to consent items, number 16. Do we have a motion to approve the consent items as presented? Okay, do we have a second? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Passes 4-0. All right, item 17, action items. Approve the school plan for student achievement for elementary school sites. Is this Irene or Joy? Joy?
Yes, so as you heard in the presentations earlier, that we are bringing to the school site plans for approval today. And so you heard the highlights in the presentation, and these are the actual plans in their full slow-mo length.
Hundreds of pages.
To be approved this evening.
Do we have a motion to approve the plans? Okay, second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, passes 4-0. Second. Maribeth.
Thank you.
I will tell you, ladies, that your voices are very similar this morning, and both of us are like, so we'll get you.
You get used to it. Yeah, it's true. All right, so action, item 17B, approve 2019-20 and 2020-2021 student teacher calendar.
I'd like to bring up Jason Owens. Oh, there he is. He's going to talk through this this item for us.
Good evening, board. I am here today to ask you to approve the 1920 and 2021 calendar. In collaboration with CSEA and CUTA, we sat down for a lengthy hour and a half, and were able to quickly collaborate and come up with a calendar for these 2 years. The big things that we needed to talk about when doing our calendar is that our high school students were getting out very late compared to some of our other high school districts, and that was causing difficulty in enrolling into community college courses For seniors, community college courses for credit recovery for our other students, because sciences and things like that, they need wet labs. They do need to actually attend a course at a community college or university to be able to have that count toward their A through G requirements. In addition, getting the turnaround from the grades to the transcripts to then enroll them in our very own summer school, the turnaround was really tight. So what we did is when we made the calendar, we are starting a little bit earlier and we will end a week earlier. So that will give us that crucial time to ensure that our students who are at the high school level are able to have the maximum opportunity to earn all of their credits in the time frame allotted and be able to move forward toward whatever education after that they choose. Let's see here. That really is the biggest part of what we did. The other parts of the calendar, as you see, if you compare it to this year, it's very similar. The only difference is it shifted up a little bit. So I ask you to please approve.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, questions, comments? Since there was a discussion there that we didn't have earlier. Okay, motion to approve? Okay, second? Second. And now any questions or comments? This was one of the rare items we hadn't discussed earlier, where we normally would do that. Seeing as there are none, we'll move to a vote. En masse votes, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, passes 4-0.
Yeah, the point of order is that ordinarily 10 o'clock is curfew, and we need to make a motion for the board to extend the curfew, because we're going to be close, but I don't want us to exceed.
Just in case,
May I
okay.
ask Madam President if you would please consider such a motion?
Okay, yes, are you making a motion?
I can't.
You can't make the motion, okay.
I make a motion to extend past that.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. What? That was Kimberly. Throwing her voice to her face.
Yeah, now you two are going to start.
Do it on purpose. Okay, just to be clear, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, passes 4-0. So should it be required, we can go past 10 o'clock. Okay, that said, we are action items 17C. Okay, here we are. Hold public hearing for contract initial proposals as submitted by Cabrillo Unified School District and the Cabrillo Unified Teachers Association. That's back to Jason.
Hello again. I'm new at this, as some of you are as well, so I wasn't sure if I needed to come back up, wait on the side, learning all this new fun dance and song we get to do together on Thursday nights. So I am asking to please call for a public hearing on the upcoming CUTA negotiations. We were sunshined by CUTA, and that letter is enclosed in the packet. The proposed response from the district, on behalf of the governing board, is also enclosed in the packet, and we would like to have the open hearing, which I'm not sure quite how that works, so we'll walk through that together, and then hopefully move forward to approve the sunshine letters and move forward with dates for bargaining.
I'm not sure I know how that works either, so I'm going to look to Patty / Rosie. Gavel.
Gavel open, a public hearing, make any comment towards the sunshine proposals of this. So we will, Madam President, will be asking to open the public hearing for the board to obtain commentary on the proposals of both CUTA and district sunshine proposals to open the CUTA.
So we're hereby doing that. Any comments from the public? Okay, no. Seeing as there are none, bring the gavel, close the session. Public hearing closed. And so now we have an opportunity, we need to make a motion in a second to,
No, none.
no?
That
Oh,
was
no,
it.
none, it's just a public hearing.
That was your
Okay,
delegate.
that's it, okay. There, Jason, we both learned something today.
All right.
All right.
Learning and growing
I
together
might need to
is
watch
what
the
we do.
video to remind myself for next time. The videos come in handy, actually. Really handy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. All right, so moving to item 17D, appoint new members to the Bond Citizens Oversight Committee. Crystal.
This is a very exciting action item for me to bring to you tonight. The Bond Oversight Committee is one of the committees that I facilitate that is with members that are appointed by the board that serve to make sure that the district is spending the bond dollars in accordance to how we said we were going to spend them. When Measure M passed, the board had decided that we would combine both of the bond measures into one oversight committee. And in doing that and sending our thank you flyer to the community for the passage of Measure M, we got an overwhelming response of individuals that wish to serve. Unfortunately, not all of them can serve for different reasons. It would be a committee that would probably never have quorum to make sure that everyone, was able to show up. But nonetheless, now I have all of their contact information and will definitely be able to find something for them to do so that they can feel that they can participate. So I held a mandatory informational meeting, which I felt was necessary just to make sure that everyone who wished to serve on this oversight committee really understood what their job was, and then I was able to answer any questions, make sure that they had the appropriate paperwork filled out, and then really just had a discussion with them on why they want to serve and who would be the best fit for this. So the members that I am asking you to appoint tonight, the new members consist of Lisa Zanetti, James Marsh, Lenny Likos, Abe Jimenez, Zachary Bennington, and they will be joining the current citizens, which are Mike Alifano, Diane Bronstein, Naomi Patridge, and Charmian Donegan. I do think that it's important to note that the members that we actually got and some of the ones that are being appointed tonight, in full transparency, are not supporters of Measure M. So I think that it's a good way to create that conversation and for them to also get the message out there that the district is spending the money and according to what we said, and we are doing the things that we said we are going to do. So tonight I ask you to approve Action 17D to appoint these new members to the Bond Oversight Committee.
And just to check the procedure here, motion, second, discussion, and last vote. I'm learning. All right, so do we have a motion to approve the appointment? Do we have a second? Kim and Mary Beth. Okay, do we have any questions or discussion?
Thank you to the ones that are going to be serving, but also to all those that replied and showed an interest in serving. It's very important that our community is evidenced by all the other presentations today. Our community is involved in so many different ways, but this is one way for our community to help provide oversight and accountability, and I think that's something really important for our district, and so I'm really appreciative that those citizens are able to step up and participate in this. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions? Okay, then we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, passes 4-0. All right, so brings us to item 17E, receive the Measure B parcel tax annual report.
Yes, so each year we have, just as we do for our bond expenditures, we also have an outside agency look at how the district has collected and managed the revenue that we have brought in from the parcel tax. Within that examination of those funds and the revenue that was brought in, they generate a report which I bring to the board. So tonight I ask you to receive the Measure B parcel tax annual report.
Okay, a motion to approve? Second? All right, questions or comments? She's gonna get you. Maria's gonna break it up next time. All right.
right, seeing there are no questions or comments, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, pass 4-0. All right, item 17F, approve first interim budget report.
Yes, as presented to you earlier tonight, thank you so much again for your patience as we were working out our technical difficulties. Unfortunately, I do bring you a qualified interim to certify tonight for the 18-19 school year.
I have a motion to approve. Okay, second?
Second.
Questions or comments? I had one question I forgot to ask earlier, which is what are the other, what are any other implications of us going now qualified?
So the first, definitely, the spotlight is now on us. We have our first qualified certification. If we go qualified again in second interim, FCMAT with the Fiscal Crisis Management Team will start to be appearing here. The county will start to be very involved. They will be asking for a board-approved detailed budget reduction list to be presented for us to be able to pass our budget for the 19-20 operation year. Without passage of a budget, the superintendent does not receive a paycheck. So there's definitely some emphasis on doing that. So it's really going to be a team effort to make sure that the state really, they're looking at this from a helpful, so it's like, I feel like they understand this lack of funding with these mandated expenses, because they obviously understand districts are having a hard time, because they put a lot of money to FCMAT to make sure that districts are remaining fiscally solvent. So, actually I'm trying to find the positive in that, because it's going to be a lot of work, but that they really understand that we need that assistance, and the more that we report in our communication with the state, the more they see us, because I don't think they see my report that I submit to them, right? So definitely we just get a lot more supports, and there's a lot more communication. You will probably see them at our board meetings. I wouldn't be surprised if the county is here for second interim in March.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are there mechanisms around the budget that, as a board, we can help you communicate in terms of support of, you said there's some legislation in January, but to keep the messaging clear and concise that this is beyond local decision-making, but this is an impact from state decisions.
So the conversation at the state level is starting in January, right? So they kind of have this basically as campaigning January through when they approve the budget. So in January, starting in January, the district will really be going out into our community and really giving some very detailed, having detailed conversations about the budget and talking about what the future may or may not look like, and how we really need everyone's help to communicate this. With some of the information that I'm preparing to go out to the community, there are letters that we're asking the community, including the board, and some resolutions that we will be adopting in the near future that will be sent to Senator Hill's office and then all the way up to the state. So we will definitely continue that advocacy. Tonight when Senator Hill's office was here, I pulled her aside and already got in her ear, so she knows I will be visiting very soon. So, we got really far last year with this discussion at the state level of increasing the LCFF funding, and they're bringing it back, and I think they even have a stronger message. They have more districts that are going qualified. They have more districts that are in state receivership across the state. So it's really becoming an issue they can't necessarily avoid. Obviously, we do not have the luxury to just sit and wait and hope. We have to be able to have a plan to work on that third year.
So any more comments or questions? Move to
favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, passes 4-0. Thanks, Crystal. All right, so item 17G, approve Cabrillo Unified School District Governing Board policy updates and adopt the proposed revisions as recommended by the California School Boards Association. Jane.
So we have two this evening, more coming in January. So welcome to the board. Every month, pretty much, there are updates that either federal law or state law require the board. You have a whole governing board policies, and we need to keep them updated and in line with all this changing legislation. And pretty much every month, we try and bring 3-4 of them. I mean, the packs that sit on my desk are about that high every month, but we try and work our way through them. So there are 2 of them this evening. The first of it is our board policy for the education of English learners. I would like to start this, but a quick comment that we have always had policy on the education and have been dedicated to our English learners. What this board policy revision is reflecting is the local control accountability program and exactly how it addresses English learners. So if you read this, first they say local control accountability plan, but then they really get parent engagement, family engagement. All these are the major hallmarks of the local control accountability programs. And so the law for local control accountability program had to come in here. Also the new Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, also reflecting in here. And so the language has been updated to reflect those goals. I will say though, for me reading this board policy update, Cabrillo has always had a big commitment to working with its diverse learner population, and I mean all types of learners, and always has had a commitment to working with families. It is nice to see it, I think, some of the clearest language I've seen come out of the California School Boards Association about exactly how that's done and how we commit. So I'm delighted to bring to this policy for your review and acceptance this evening. The second one is the policy which I brought you last month, which was, I was as confused as you were about when does everything become official. It would have been really nice if they had told me from the minute I went into it that this doesn't take effect till 2020. So as of the next election, the newly elected board members become active the second Friday of December, as opposed to now when it's the first Friday of December. So it was not relevant to us now, which would have saved some angst and grief, but it will be relevant on the 2020 deadline. And those are the 2 policies I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Jane. Do we have a motion to approve? Second? Second. Questions or comments? Questions or comments? Seeing as there are none, we will move to vote. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Passes 4-0. All right, well, I'm glad, Jane, you asked us to do the extension of the
Yeah,
curfew.
well,
because
okay,
we're
it's
gonna
a minute and a half, okay.
Oh, a minute and a half over the, because we have a few things I need to read here still. Item 18, future board agenda items. Receiving the Strategic Education Plan Annual Update on Goals 1 and 2 to complement the presentation today of Goals 3 and 4. B, approve the school plan for student achievement for secondary school sites to complement the presentations that we had today on the primary schools. C, approve the independent audit report. D, receive construction update report. E, approve Williams Uniform Complaint Report. F, approve Cabrillo Unified School District Governing Board Policy Updates and adopt the proposed provisions as recommended by the California School Board Association. And item 19, future events, dates, requests, December 21st, very exciting, Pilar Citos graduation at Pilar Citos High School, 10 a.m., be there or be square. December 24th to January 4th, winter break. All sites are closed, so happy holidays to everybody. It's a
The minimum day, oh,
Add that,
yes,
please.
yes, we'll add that as item
No, you have to, it's a minimum day.
Yeah.
Throwing the comment out of order.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. Well, we'll have a special note, December 21st is a minimum day as well. January 7th, Teachers and Staff Workday, no school for students. January 8th, the Big Lift Committee meeting, District Office Boardroom, 3 p.m. January 8th, Chamber Education Committee meeting, DO Boardroom. January 17th, our next regular governing board meeting, which was confirmed today, in the same time, same place. And we will return to the closed session.
This is a minor correction, that
sorry.
the Big Lift Committee meeting and the Chamber of Commerce Committee meeting are actually on January 15th due to the vacation. We're moving it 1 week.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Joy. Okay, so we will return to closed session and, yeah. We will return to closed session. This ends the open session for the meeting. Thank you very much. Again, happy holidays to everybody. We don't see the remaining couple of weeks. Have a great